the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador. This is From the South. I'm Jose Daniel Lopez. A 6.0 magnitude earthquake has hit off the coast of Indonesia's Java and Bali Islands. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, the quake's epicenter was in the Bali Sea, around 40 kilometers off the eastern end of Java. There are reports that it was felt in parts of Bali. At this time, there are no details of casualties or damage. Indonesia is still reeling from a devastating 7.5 magnitude earthquake and tsunami that killed at least 2,000 lives. Category 4 Hurricane Michael has made landfall in Florida by ripping through Panama City Beach and battering the region. With winds of 230 kilometers per hour, it has caused floods and uprooted trees. Michael is just short of a Category 5 hurricane. Over 2 million residents were given mandatory or voluntary evacuation orders. Those still in the area by Wednesday morning, they were told it was too late to evacuate.
I say God bless you all. That's my message, because that's what it is. The storm is there. I mean, that storm is there. It's sort of too late to do anything about it now from the standpoint of moving.
Hurricane Michael is a deadly Category 4 storm. This is the worst storm that the Florida Panhandle has seen in more than 100 years. Again, this is the worst storm that our Florida Panhandle has seen in a century. Hurricane Michael is upon us, and now is the time to seek refuge.
Unfortunately, Hurricane Michael is a hurricane of the worst kind. There's nothing else that can be said about it. We're looking at 145 mile an hour sustained winds. It could possibly get stronger. Major hurricanes cause large losses of life and the most amount of destruction that hurricanes can bring forward.
Our correspondent in the U.S., Jorge Gestoso, brings us more.
Thank you. Hurricane Michael, a Category 4 monstrous storm with winds of 145 miles, could reach Category 5 before hitting Panama City in the few coming hours. We're talking about a surge expected of 14 feet. The Panama City beach has been closed. Half of the population of the area has left already. The winds could hit also Georgia and even the Carolinas. The governor of Florida says that it's time to go and it's time to take all the precautions because they believe that the consequences are going to be devastating. We get back to you now.
Thank you, Jorge, for that report. Nicaragua is still reeling from the heavy rainfall brought by Michael in recent days. 14 people were reported dead across Central America and damage was widespread.
Floods, fallen trees, and semi-destroyed houses are what's left in the aftermath of heavy rainfall. In the Camilo Ortega neighborhood, Maria Auxiliadora lost her home and all her belongings.
Here, many neighborhoods of Nicaragua are affected. The whole country is like this, but President Daniel is helping not only me, but all the affected.
The government has begun an emergency response. In the Monteverde region, the City Hall of Managua continues to help people most in need, an initiative much appreciated by locals.
We are not at risk like before, because before we couldn't even fall asleep each time it rained. The first time, the rain even dragged big trees that we had. But with this help, we feel more safe. We can go to bed at peace. This has been a benefit for all.
In Managua, over 3,000 people were evacuated to temporary shelters.
The model that the government has, it has been tested whether it's an earthquake, flooding, fires, any type of natural disaster. It's a model that first of all puts our people as the main protagonist. A lot of training and risk disaster management, in how we deal with emergencies and with interinstitutional accompaniment.
In the capital, 24 houses were destroyed, 7 shelters are in operation. So far, more than 25,000 people have been affected and 4 were killed.
The economic cost of climate-related disasters have reached $2.25 trillion over the last 2 decades. That is a 150% increase, according to the United Nations. The UN has reported that climate change is increasing the risks of extreme natural disasters, such as floods and storms. Countries where the financial loss has been in the highest are India, China, the United States, and Japan.
We have seen already that there is a very sharp increase in the number of climate-related events, which are actually creating 77% of the total direct economic losses caused by disasters. The report also emphasizes on the fact that the poorest of the poor are the most affected. And this happens even in developed nations.
We really need to have some disaster risk reduction and disaster risk mitigation, that is adaptation for the short term. For 5 to 10 year period, poor people in poor countries do not have 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. Most of those children will be dead. This is what is going to happen. Either they will be dead because of the catastrophe itself, or they'll be dead because of the prevailing persistent effect of malnutrition that comes along with these catastrophes, with the droughts and the floods.
In yet another natural disaster, heavy rains and flash floods have been killed at least 10 people of the island of Mallorca in Spain. Late Tuesday night, rivers burst their banks, flooding streets and homes. Roads have also been destroyed, with people left trapped in their homes. One person is still missing.
I want to show my solidarity and empathy to the families of the victims who have suffered an enormous loss. And I want to reassure the population that the Spanish government will put into action all the necessary resources so they can go back to their normal lives.
Our correspondent in Spain, Edu Marin, tells us more.
At least 10 people have died due to torrential rain and flash flooding on Mallorca Island. Reliable sources say up to 9 people remain unaccounted for. It's feared the death toll may rise as emergency services continue the search and rescue efforts. 400 emergency personnel have arrived on the island to render assistance. President Pedro Sanchez has visited affected areas. So too has the opposition leader, Pablo Casado. The village of St. Lorenz was among those areas hardest hit. A river overflowed, causing widespread damage. There are images of cars being swept away by raging floodwaters as flows were transformed into virtual waterways. Spain's Met Service had issued a red alert, which is its highest level of warning for extreme risk. However, it has since lowered the warning to yellow. A reduction in rainfall is expected in the coming hours.
We'll take a short break now. Join us in a few. Welcome back. Keiko Fujimori, the leader of the opposition and daughter of Alberto Fujimori, has been arrested in Peru. The leader of Fuerza Popular, the biggest party in Congress, was detained when she went to the prosecutor's office. She was there to declare an alleged illegal financing of her presidential campaign. The judge has reportedly ordered that she had to be detained for 10 days. The prosecutors also ordered the detention of 19 others involved in the case, including 2 former ministers. University students are marching throughout Colombia to protest the budget crisis. Private universities with the Senas Workers Union and the National Indigenous Organization are protesting the financial situation. According to Jennifer Pedraza, a representative of the National University, the institution's budget deficit exceeds $6 million. Our correspondent in Bogota, Paola Fernandez, has more.
Teachers and students' movements from public universities has been mobilizing to demand more resources from the national government. This is one out of 5 demonstrations that will take place across Bogota. Students are protesting due to an extreme budget deficit in public education. They want a new budget of close to $1 million and for the government to pay the debt it has with universities, high schools, and to improve science and technology research in Colombia.
2 days after Venezuelan Councilman Fernando Albán reportedly killed himself by jumping out of a window while in detention, Attorney General Tarek William Saab spoke at a press conference.
I want to make clear that Mr. Albán was going to speak at a preliminary hearing on October 8. But around noon, as he was having lunch before being moved to the courthouse, Albán suddenly got up from the table and asked to go to the bathroom. Taking advantage of the situation, he ran towards a window on the 10th floor of the Bolivarian Intelligence Services headquarters building and threw himself from it. He did not jump out of a bathroom window.
And family and friends of Fernando Albán have laid him to rest. A religious ceremony was held in the Central University of Venezuela chapel, where he studied for his law degree. The number of Brazilians living in extreme poverty increased between 2014 and 2017. Families earning less than $20 a day are considered to be living in extreme poverty. Maranhão remains to date the poorest state in the country. Analysts believe the economic crisis and some of President Michel Temer's policies helped push millions of Brazilians below the poverty line. Workers' Party presidential candidate Fernando Haddad held a press conference for international media on Wednesday in Brazil. He spoke about the dangers far-right candidate Jair Bolsonaro represents for the country, particularly in economic matters and isolationism.
The financial market here prefers the extreme right candidate because of his plan to sell national equity, basically thinking of quick and short-term profits. They're looking at Petrobras, Bank of Brazil, and the Federal Savings Bank, so we have to send out an alert on the risk we're facing. I understand that the pace of integration has been very slow so far, and the world's geopolitical arrangements require faster action. I understand that Mercosur and South America depend on a plan of better and faster integration with a certain level of determination for us to be important in the world. We are weak if we're isolated.
Our correspondent in Sao Paulo, Ignacio Lemus, has more.
The presidential candidate for the Workers' Party, Fernando Haddad, has been talking to the international media at this hotel in Sao Paulo, where he was warned about another possible absence of Jair Bolsonaro from the coming TV debates, supposedly on advice from his doctors. Fernando Haddad said he was ready to go to any hospital or clinic and that he will debate very calmly so as not to put any stress on Bolsonaro. He said that the absence of Bolsonaro would be another blow to democracy, especially in a situation where the electorate is being informed by fake news on social media. Haddad also talked about the international situation, including the diplomatic tension between Brazil and Venezuela. He said Brazil needed to develop a different kind of diplomatic relationship with its neighbors. He said there needed to be collaboration with Venezuela and also with Argentina, and this was the best way of helping to promote solutions to the crisis in those countries. On Argentina, he said that in spite of ideological differences, collaboration could help to improve the economic situation there, and this would be good for Brazil too. Haddad also pointed to the dangers presented by U.S. interest in the region, with military bases and its interest in controlling Venezuela and also Brazil offshore oil reserves. Finally, Haddad emphasized his disagreements with the economic adjustments policies of President Michel Temer, which he said will be continued by Bolsonaro and his main economic advisor, Paulo Guedes. He said the voters had rejected such policies last Sunday, as seen in the very low votes for the candidates of the two governing parties, the MDB and the PSDB.
That was Ignacio Lemos from Brazil. Bolivia has invited Chile to hold talks on the long-running maritime border dispute.
The government of Bolivia expresses its respect for the recent discussion of the International Court of Justice in the before-mentioned case. In this context, the plurinational state of Bolivia wishes to point out the importance of the statement contained in the last paragraph number 176 of the before-mentioned ruling that states, however, the conclusion of the court should not be understood as an impediment to the parties continuing their dialogue.
In response, Chile's President Sebastián Piñera said he's willing to talk, but he has conditions. He says Bolivia must first withdraw its demand for access to the sea through Chilean territory.
Chile was always and will always be ready for dialogue with all countries in the world, and especially its neighboring countries. And as far as Bolivia is concerned, I think it's very important to fulfill the requirements before new talks start. It must be clear that the 1904 border agreement between Chile and Bolivia is recognized. The decision by the International Court must be recognized and respected, and Bolivia has to abandon its absurd demand for sea access into Chilean territory.
Cuba is celebrating the 158th anniversary of the start of its war for independence from Spanish colonial rule. Let's find out more about this special date on this report.
La de Majagua, located in the east of Cuba, was the scenario where the first cry for independence was heard. On October 10, 1868, Carlos Manuel de Céspedes released his slaves and called them to take arms and emancipate Cuba from the Spanish Empire. Before the newly free men, Céspedes read the manifesto of October 10, in which he proclaimed the abolition of slavery and expressed the reasons why Cubans had to also abolish Spanish colonialism. The war started in 1868 and it lasted for 10 years. Despite its eventual failure, it served to awaken patriotic sentiments among Cubans. The 10-year war was followed by the Chiquita War of 1879 to 1880 and by the War of Independence of 1895 to 1898. This last one was headed by José Martí, the national hero of Cuba. The people of the island had to fight for almost a century to obtain their final liberation, the one that came at the hands of Fidel Castro and the rebels that on January 1st, 1959, ousted Fulgencio Batista. The triumph of the revolution, as Fidel confirmed, had its roots on October 10, 1868, when Carlos Manuel de Céspedes, the father of the nation, called for a rebellion that marked the beginning of Cuba's struggle for independence.
We'll take a short break now. Don't go away. Welcome back. CCTV footage showing missing Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi entered the Saudi consulate in Istanbul has emerged. International news channel TRT World obtained the footage on Wednesday. It shows Khashoggi walking into the consulate on October 2, 2018, the date of his disappearance. Turkish newspaper Sabah has said authorities have identified a 15-member intelligence team said to be involved in the disappearance. Now let's take a look at some other stories making headlines around the world.
Russia's President Vladimir Putin has personally congratulated Khabib Nurmagomedov for retaining his UFC lightweight title against Conor McGregor. Last Saturday's intense match was preceded by hostile exchanges, including racist and Islamophobic abuse hurled at Nurmagomedov. After his victory, the fight continued with the Russian lightweight jumping over the cage to attack a member of McGregor's team, which led to a brawl.
Unlike his performance and disrespect to my side, my parents, my country, I behaved with dignity. But I also lost control at certain moments because provocations continued even during the fight.
One worker has been killed and 10 others injured in an explosion at an oil refinery in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Firefighters responded immediately while local residents fled the town in panic when smoke sprayed. One said the explosion was so powerful that it rocked the family home. The cause is not known yet. A crucifix that was erected on the Greek island of Lesbos in honor of refugees who died at sea was vandalized on Sunday. Not everyone was in favor of the crucifix. One local organization said it was divisive. Locals, however, are outraged by the vandalism, saying they believe it was motivated by hate. Rocks were used to put it back up, and residents say a larger cross should be put in its place.
A Moroccan teenager who was allegedly kidnapped and raped by several men in her village has urged victims to be brave. Khadija spoke after meeting with the judge investigating her case in the region of Beni Mellal. Her father said she's still traumatized. Her ordeal lasted for 2 months. Her case came to light in August, leading to rallies and a wave of solidarity online.
I call on all women to be courageous and to talk about the issues affecting them. They must speak up. I hope that this raping will end in Morocco, and what happened to me will never happen again to anyone else.
We come to the end of this news brief. This and many other stories you can find at our website at telesurtv.net/English. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Jose Daniel Lopez. Thank you for watching.
Enjoy our programming from Monday to Friday, where you'll find the best